Welcome to Discovering. I have a couple of stories to share with you yet from last fall before we get into the winter outdoors and ice fishing season. Back in October, I joined the Michigan DNR to learn more about coaster brook trout and how they're monitoring Lake Superior tributaries using electrofishing surveys to see if the current restrictive fishing regulations are increasing coaster populations.
It's a 20-inch minimum size limit, one fish bag for brook trout.
Plus a Lake Michigan layout boat waterfowl hunt with Heroes Harvest.
It's really, really unique. It's really hard to pass up if you get an opportunity like this.
So sit back and relax. It's Monday night and it's time for Upper Michigan's very own Discovering.
The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone. Forest thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak. Surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields. Call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill. The eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
I've been out with Heroes Harvest a couple of times for their annual spring turkey hunt. And last fall, I joined them again, this time for a Lake Michigan layout boat duck hunt.
Our mission at Heroes Harvest is to get veterans in the outdoors through the use of recreational therapy. And we do a ton of events. You're familiar with our turkey hunt that we put on. It's probably our big event. And it's really, again, just giving them another maybe skill or an opportunity to spend some time with other veterans and, talk veteran talk and be with people that they're accustomed to being with. And through that, hopefully give them a little therapy in life and give them maybe a new experience that they can find a different outlet to enjoy the outdoors and just feel better about doing different things.
You get outside, and that in itself just boosts your mental health, and it's hard to have a bad day on a day like this, and if you're outside enjoying the weather and just being around other veterans again, and there's a sense of camaraderie you don't get anywhere else really other than a trip like this. It's just it's nice for a recharge for sure.
The 6 vets on this trip are from Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. Brant came from Minnesota for his first hunt with Heroes Harvest.
Yeah, I was in the Army National Guard for 7 years and moved to Minnesota after that and kind of just got involved with some groups like this and get out and find that community again. Yeah.
How'd you hear about Heroes Harvest?
It came across my Facebook feed. Yeah, just out of nowhere. This looks pretty awesome. I'm going to sign up, and Peter gave me the call, and I was like, heck yeah, I'll come up there. That'll be awesome.
Leonard Koskoden. I am from Dryden, Michigan. Been in the Michigan National Guard for about 5.5 years, almost 6. Did one deployment overseas, end of 2022, early 2023. Just signed my extension to go for another 3 years and just picked up a promotion recently.
The weekend's activities were based out of the Fishery Point cottages near Escanaba.
Once everyone's in and we welcome them all and introduce everyone, we head out, get licenses. We took a quick trip to Rapid River Knife Works, did a little tour there, let them sign the Veterans Wall, and then came back and we do a little boat safety, how to get in and out safely of a tender boat into a layout boat, and some gun safety, duck identification, and went over some rules and had a big dinner. A couple local families offered to make us dinner and joined us for that meal, and then just hung out the rest of the night getting ready for the big hunt this morning.
For many, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to experience layout boat hunting on the Great Lakes.
It's basically like a layout blind, if you've ever hunted in a field and you lay out, and it's basically a little bitty coffin that floats around and surrounded by decoys. We're about water level, and then we have bigger boats that tend to them. If they shoot birds, we'll pick them up with the bigger boats, and we're hunting diver ducks for the most part. Bluebills, goldeneyes, buffleheads, we shoot some mergansers. We actually have shot Canada geese before. That'll come through occasionally, but it's mostly diver ducks. It's a different experience from the standpoint of shooting's a little more complicated. You're not on solid ground, and it's a lot of fun.
I spent the morning of the hunt in one of the tender boats as they set up a few hunters in the layouts and put out the spreads of decoys.
The process of setting up, it's a little involved, but once you get the rhythm down to it, isn't too bad. Set the anchor for the layout, get the layout in, put a decoy raft out, set a downwind anchor, and then start setting the individual strings of decoys. We end up setting 2 lines on each side of the layout. I'll put in some little spinners that I make to give some flash to the spread. Then we go through the process of getting the hunter into the layout. We try to make it as simple and easygoing as possible. No stress, no rushing. We get them in there, we back off and do a radio check, make sure they're set, and then we move off to the side and stay within a couple 100 yards of them so that we can watch. It's really fun to watch those hunters in the layouts, shooting, missing, sometimes connecting. It's pretty fun. Then they'll call if they get a bird down, and we'll head in there to pick it up. There's another shot, just heard. So if we hear that radio crackle, that'll be a good sign.
While we were chatting, our hunter Lance shot a merganser.
Bird down, still alive. To my right, over.
Got you, Lance, we're on our way.
Layout boat hunting on the Great Lakes isn't something that is easy to just pick up and do. You need all the right gear and boats. So to pull off an event like this takes volunteers willing to donate their time and equipment.
100% volunteer, and the group we have here, taking these veterans out, they're on their own accord here. They offered it up. They have really nice boats and gear, and do it just for the veterans. They're taking a weekend away from their own hunting so that they can get out here and introduce someone else to the sport.
This is the first that I've been able to work with Heroes Harvest. It's a chance for me to share kind of the passion that I have for this style of hunting without them having to go head over heels like I have with all the equipment, because it's pretty equipment intensive to do this kind of hunting. And what I love about it is that I get a new batch of hunters that have never hunted before even. And it's fun to give them this opportunity that for a lot of people, it's a bucket list type of adventure. So fun to be able to be a part of that.
It was a beautiful morning as shots rang out across the water.
Ideal weather today. We've got just enough chop to hide these layout boats better because they end up looking like waves, but not so much that it makes it uncomfortable being in the layout or tough to shoot. It's kind of Eric, I can't remember if it was you that described it as a fourth dimensional, because you are rocking from side to side. You're pitching fore and aft, right? And then you're also swinging the gun at a bird that's moving. There's a lot going on, but it's surprising how people adapt pretty quickly to it.
It takes a while to get used to. My first time I was shooting a lot of air and water. Getting used to the whole sitting down, sitting up, lay back down, sitting up. It takes a little bit to do. It's a unique challenge. It takes a little bit to get used to, but it's not unbearable.
The morning went by super fast, and the 6 vets harvested 18 ducks.
That was a very new experience and quite frankly awesome.
Yeah, tell me about your morning. How'd it go?
It was, it's a little bit of an experience learning how to shoot out of them. So it took a while, but after a couple shots, we got her dialed in and started knocking them down. 2 buffleheads and 4 mergansers.
Did you see a lot of ducks out there?
Oh, tons of them. We'll see the shot cam footage, and there'll be more misses than hits, but yeah, there were a ton of ducks around. It was just, yeah, they just kept coming.
It was great. Everyone was able to connect, and like I said, lots of shots fired, and we did really well. The wind picked up towards the end, so we called it just because it switched a little bit and it makes it a little tougher picking stuff up. And but we're all back on shore now and ready to clean birds. We're pretty immersive as far as doing it. We don't do it for them. We teach them how to do it. So hopefully they go home with a skill, and so we'll show them and then let them dig in and make sure they're doing it right. And then tonight we're gonna eat all those ducks up and have a big duck feed.
We're out on the Pilgrim River, the lower part of the river. This is part of a study evaluating the effects of protective regulations that are intended to increase abundance of coaster brook trout in different streams in the Upper Peninsula that drain the Lake Superior. And we have 1,500-foot electrofishing stations, and we sample them on a 3-year rotation. So this is the index site we have on the lower part of the Pilgrim.
The Pilgrim River is one of the agency's treatment streams, where a 20-inch minimum size regulation is currently in place with a 1 trout bag limit.
We've got 8 stations that we sample that have the regulation. We've got about 7 that don't have the regulation. So we can compare effects of the regulation on the fish populations in the river. And we look at abundance of brook trout, the sizes of fish, and the age structure of the population.
He is 6 inches.
So what is a coaster brook trout, and how does it differ from a regular brook trout?
So coaster brook trout are brook trout they're defined as spending a portion of their life in the Great Lakes and then also sometime in streams or inland lake habitats. They used to be abundant in many streams all around Lake Superior. Some estimates said there were about 158 streams that held coaster brook trout throughout the Lake Superior Basin.
The coaster brook trout fishery declined dramatically during the 1880s, mostly by commercial and angling over harvest. Michigan's lumber boom also altered critical fish habitat.
The places where we have remnant populations that we know of are Isle Royal, and that's a remote area out in Lake Superior has special regulations. And then the other main river that's well known for coasters is the Salmon Trout River, which is east of Marquette. And that river largely drains lands and flows through the Huron Mountain Club property. So it's fairly inaccessible, and which may have helped to benefit those populations. The Pilgrim River here was one population that kind of existed, and it was rediscovered through this project and some pit tag, some telemetry studies of brook trout that were led by a PH.D. student at Michigan Tech, Chris Adams. So this is kind of a second stream coaster population that's well documented on the south shore of Lake Superior. And these are really the only 2 populations that we know of that currently host, sizable numbers of coasters.
Oh, that's a big brook trout.
You got it? No,
I don't have it.
Oh,
there he
okay,
is.
right there.
Yep, there you go, Mitch.
Hey! Wow, dude. That's a really nice brook trout.
The larger brook trout in this river are probably coasters. Also, like we just had a 14-incher. That's probably a fish that's going to out-migrate.
In the river, it's nearly impossible to tell if a brookie is a coaster other than by its size.
So it's kind of tricky because these are partially migratory populations, which means some component of the population are just stream resident brook trout, and then there's a migratory component that migrates out and comes back in. And the residents and the migrants interbreed, so it's pretty hard to see any kind of a genetic difference. So we can't necessarily see which are residents and which are coasters, but often the ones that go out there and get rather large, we kind of assume that they've been feeding out in the lake. Just there's a little bit more food out there, and they don't have to fight the current as much.
The DNR has been surveying this stretch of the Pilgrim River since 2013. Their target species is brook trout, but they also count and measure all species they net.
Our survey involves a 1,500-foot long reach of stream that we electrofish. We use backpack electrofishers, which is it's a pulsed DC current. And we have specific settings. We have a box that sets the pulse rate and the duty cycle and the voltage. And this is the anode, the tip of this probe here. And the fish are attracted to the anode. And then the negative, that's the positive. The negative is this piece here that hangs off the back. I'm not an electrician, so don't ask me all the details. But they're attracted to the anode, and so we can reach into cover, and they'll come out, and we'll dip them up. And then we put them into you probably saw the belly netter, we call it. The person has a net around their stomach, and they're measuring the fish, taking scale samples for aging, and then we're taking fin clips for a stable isotope project and for genetics. Brook trout. We've completed our sample here today. We saw fairly typical results, though we did catch a few large brook trout, 13, 14, 15 inches, I think. And so that's a good sign. Some years we don't see brook trout of that size in this reach that we sample.
15.6.
Last several years we've seen more brown trout and some larger brown trout. And brown trout compete and prey on brook trout. So brown trout are not doing brook trout any favors. But the populations are healthier, and we saw probably all age classes of brook trout. We saw it suggests they've been reproducing successfully through the years. And we did see some sculpin, which are closer to the bottom of the food web and are preyed on to some degree by brook trout and brown trout. But I think the survey went well, but we are just sampling 1,500 feet out of many miles of river. So it's a very small portion of the river that we're sampling. So it's been an objective of all the agencies around Lake Superior for decades to restore coaster brook trout populations, to have more streams with coasters, increase coaster abundance. And we've tried different things like doing habitat work, stocking them, and we've discovered that there don't appear to be specific strains of coasters. The habitat work has not really done anything. In 1997, Minnesota put on a 20-inch minimum size limit on their streams along the North Shore that drain into Lake Superior. And after about 10 years, they started seeing brook trout that were bigger and older than they'd seen in any of their previous surveys. And that was about 2012 or 13 when I first heard them presenting on this. And that got us thinking about, well, where do we have coasters in Michigan? It's places that aren't getting fished very much. It's, Isle Royal and the Salmon Trout River. So that got us going on trying this with a fisheries division. We're about 10 years into it now, and we're to the point where we're thinking, well, maybe we'll see something. We're hoping, but our data so far suggests that we have not seen a resurgence in populations in the rivers from the regulations, but the regulations are working in Minnesota. Ontario's applied them to a number of their rivers, and they're seeing coaster populations that they hadn't seen before. So we're starting to wonder if maybe we need to do some type of tweaking to the regulations here. One of the thoughts on it, the coastal life history, is that it's a density-dependent migration. So when you have a dense population of juveniles in the river, it gets hard to find enough food, and it might be getting hard for that fish to survive through the winter. So some of those fish will out-migrate, and so they might out-migrate down into the lake, set up shop down there and feed and grow well, and they might come back up in the river to spawn. So one of the thoughts behind the regulation is that by having a protective size limit, you can increase the density of adults in the river and get a higher density of juveniles produced. And then they could meet that threshold where some of those juveniles will out-migrate to the lake. And then that's kind of how the coaster life history is started. And then those fish get large, come back, and they lay a lot of eggs, and that can help have a high density in the river. And so that might be a feedback mechanism. And that's kind of what we're thinking, maybe what drives that coaster life history and how it relates to regulations. So what we're thinking about is maybe we don't have to go with a 20-inch minimum size limit, but even like a 10-inch minimum size limit would keep a lot of nice brook trout in the river, and that could boost that density up to a level where we're starting to get more young trickling out into the lake and coming back as coasters. But we'll see. We've got a lot of discussions to have.
That's all for tonight, and I hope to see you right back here next week for Upper Michigan's very own Discovering.